Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, welcome to With Jewish Youth. I certainly hope that you had a very happy Shabbos, a pleasant weekend, and you're ready once again for a beautiful series of 4 wonderful shows that are going to be on this week on the With Jewish Youth program. Before I go on to tonight's guest, who is indeed a very special personality, I want to wish bon voyage to Rabbi and Mrs. Jacobs, who are going back to Glasgow, Scotland. We want to send back regards from American Jewry to our brothers and sisters back in Glasgow. We certainly pray and hope that very, very soon we will all be united together under the banner of Mashiach Tzidkenu in our Holy Land with a complete redemption for our people, both people who are in the United States and people who are dispersed throughout the world. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight my guest is Rabbi Zalman Posner from Nashville, Tennessee. You may have heard this name, you may have seen it in print, because Rabbi Posner is the rabbi of the Orthodox community of Congregation Shearith Israel in Nashville. He is the founder and head of the Hebrew Day School, the Akiva School in Nashville, Tennessee. He is the guest lecturer at the universities in Middle Tennessee. He has translated many numbers of Chabad Hasidic classics into English. He is the author and translator, rather, of the 2 sections of Tanya, the works of the present Lubavitcher Rebbe and the past 2 Rebbes, Zechenim Levrocha. He has written numerous articles on Chabad and has appeared in different publications. He has lectured on related subjects in 22 states in the United States. He's been in Canada, in Scotland, England, in London, in Manchester, in Italy, in Israel. He's been all over the place. And he is also a radio and TV personality. And we are welcoming Rabbi Posner here in Brooklyn, New York, because he is now the guest of the Encounter with Chabad. And he is appearing on this weekend as the lecturer. In fact, the weekend is over. We call that a Pisha. And so in order not to take any of the precious time that I want to spend with Rabbi Posner, which I want to share together with you, Rabbi Posner, welcome to With Jewish Youth. It's so great and wonderful for you to take time off. I know you had a very heavy schedule this weekend. You've lectured so many times before the groups that have come in. And so I think the first thing we ought to do is ask you, what is a Pisha, what they call an encounter with Chabad?
Basically, the idea of the Pisha with Chabad is to provide Jewish students with an opportunity for exposure to Judaism. We invite them to come here. They come from campuses all over the country, some as far away as Minnesota, and spend a weekend in a Chabad environment. They live here in Crown Heights in Brooklyn. They stay with Chabad families. They daven with the Lubavitcher Rebbe's minyan, and they have all kinds of opportunities to hear about Yiddishkeit, to ask questions about it, and to actually experience what it's like to live as a Jew would live, possibly tasting a bit of the life of a chassid. These Pisha have been going on for a great many years now, and it stimulates interest on the part of the young students. Some of them can be quite alienated from their Jewishness, and helps to show them the wealth and the beauty that's just waiting for them if they just stick their hands out and reach for it.
Rabbi Posner, there are 2 questions that come to my mind, which I'm sure our audience is interested in. First of all, where are these boys from? In other words, what are their backgrounds? Where do you recruit them from? And how are they recruited?
They come from every background that you have in the American Jewish community, particularly those that are what you might call distant from Jewish tradition and the classical Jewish life. The way that they are recruited, invited to come, we send out information, invitations about the Pisha to the different campuses, to Hillel people, to any contacts we might find using different kinds of publications, word of mouth and things of that sort, so that Jewish students know about the Pisha, and then they come here. The cost, of course, would be minimal for the students, so that there shouldn't be any financial problem. Just a matter of interest. If they want to come, it should be as easy as possible for them to come. They come without background. Some literally have never seen a siddur or a pair of tefillin, or seen what a Shabbos is like at all.
Rabbi Posner, what ages are these young men? And what really stimulates them to come?
They're college age, usually about 18 to the early 20s. Sometimes we get graduate students that can be a bit older than that as well. There'll be faculty people. Sometimes there's an actual special Pisha for faculty. But this weekend was primarily for students. What brings them here? Sometimes curiosity. Sometimes dissatisfaction with what they have. Sometimes an interest in learning more about themselves and their backgrounds. It can be disillusionment sometimes with all kinds of glories that they thought they would have, and they find them unsatisfactory. They feel perhaps in their Jewishness they could find a meaning and values for themselves to live by.
Rabbi Posner, I think what we want to get onto now is more than just the philosophy behind it. In other words, the ramifications into which they fall when they get here. I'm going to get a little bit more to the nitty gritty of it. Maybe you can tell our audience, and I think many of us would be interested in this, some of the questions that some of these young men have when they get here to this encounter.
Well, for this year, the questions would be about the place that they would have in this kind of community. It's hard to know, of course, whether these questions are just theoretical abstractions or whether some are actually thinking of assuming this kind of life. They want to feel that they're part of a Jewish world. They don't want to be ignorant of it. They don't want to be far from it. It seems that they see observances and qualities of life that they would like to incorporate into their own lives. And the questions very often would be in terms of how they would fit into this kind of picture, whether they would be accepted, how much of their present lifestyles they would have to give up, or how much of it would be incompatible with a thoroughly observant or even a Hasidic kind of life. Sometimes they'll get off into abstractions too. They'll ask some very fundamental questions like, you keep talking about God and all, how do you know that there is one? Or you keep talking about God's will, and how do you know that this is what God wants? And it would just sit down with them. Sometimes it'll be a public session, and it'll be questions and answers, and try to handle it at that point. Very often it'll be at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Just a few fellas sitting down together, and then little by little a whole group gathers around, and you really thrash it out with no holds barred at all. They can say anything they want to. They are not going to be mocked. They will not be rejected. They'll be treated with dignity and respect no matter what they have to say. We would try to emphasize to them that there's no foolish question. The only thing is we want honest questions. If somebody wants to know, it's an honest question, and we don't promise that we'll have answers to all questions. There's some questions don't have answers. There's some questions have answers, and just we may not just be smart enough to know what these answers are. But we will try to be as honest and straightforward with them as humanly possible. It may be, I don't know, it may be sometimes that what the person says may be less important than who the person is, meaning that it's a cold, impersonal sort of world that too many people find themselves in. Glibness, verbalizations, being able to talk at great length about anything and everything, it's very common. People are not short on words. Sometimes it seems that they were looking for is a way of living that's worth devoting oneself to, and the first quality they want in that way of life, and the person who's advocating it or describing it to them, is a feeling of commitment, of sincerity, that the one who talks about it really believes in it. Then the interest of the student can be engaged. And I say, well, if it means this much to him, maybe it'll mean something for me as well. And if I don't answer all questions, nobody answers all my questions anyway, no matter what they are. But if this way of living is a rewarding way of living, if it gives a purpose to a person's life and gives richness and meaning to it, and really enduring pleasure rather than moments excitement, then it's worth looking into and perhaps worth devoting and committing oneself to living this way.
Rabbi Posner, I was driving up here this morning going to the office, and I noticed some of these fellows who were roaming the street of Crown Heights. Of course, my office is based here, and I noticed that some of them really looked like Queeros. And both in their garb and with their long hair, and some look a little bleary-eyed. Uh, Tell me this: how did these fellas take to this kind of a new environment? Isn't it like being thrown into a lion's den where absolutely they're outnumbered? They can never beat us. How many are there, by the way, in this weekend's Pagisha?
I believe some 125 are present at this one.
Well, 125 in connection with thousands, you can very well realize that they're outnumbered and they can never beat this thing. So the question comes to mind: how do they feel? Do they feel like they were thrown into a lion's den or to a prison or what?
They might feel a bit intimidated by the strangeness of the surroundings here, but they'll never feel that they're going to beat anybody or anybody's going to beat them. What we want to do, if at all possible, is to show them how a chassid lives. And then, if we're able to explain it to them, uh, frankly, to try to make it as attractive as we possibly can, intellectually attractive, aesthetically attractive, showing them that this is a worthwhile way to live your life. So that, always remember this, that we cannot ever beat anyone. We're not in a contest with them. There's always 1,000 doors out. If a boy comes in, there was a girl's Begisha too, by the way, last week. But if a boy or a girl comes in and feels that he's not being treated with respect and with dignity, that he's trying to uh, be beaten down, to use that sort of idea, he's just not going to see Jewishness as something attractive and worthwhile. And his way of not being beaten is by simply walking away. And we can't have that. No Jew must ever walk away from his Jewishness. And the last thing we would ever want is to be guilty of causing someone to go away. Um, it doesn't take too long before they become acclimated to the Hasidic surroundings. We found out over the course of years a number of things that happen. For example, they come in on Thursday night and their eyes are wide open. They haven't got the vaguest idea what's going on. They'll be asking questions. They don't know who's answering the questions. Can I trust this guy or not? Is he with me or is he against me? Does he really mean it or is he trying to sell me a bill of goods? Does he believe or is he just a glib talker? Usually by Saturday night, by Sunday afternoon, there has been a person-to-person relationship. We know each other's names. We simply become friends in a very warm sense of that word. And by that time, the odd part is that a fellow who came in on Thursday, for the first time in his life, Sunday morning, it may be that somebody happens to come in late, and that's his first experience. These old-timers, the veterans who have been here every bit of 48 hours, are now welcoming the newcomers in. And it's very pleasant to see that, where the inhibitions and the suspicions or what have you, it doesn't take any time at all till these things are allayed completely, and they incorporate themselves into the community almost. Of course, there's on a very superficial, very momentary level when 48 or 72 hours have passed. But the fact that they feel here they have found friends, here they have found acceptance, here they have found somebody who isn't too busy to answer their questions. Last night, you mentioned bleary-eyed. You know why they're bleary-eyed? 3 o'clock in the morning, I left. They were still there, so I don't blame them for being bleary-eyed. But one of them reacted to that. He says, somebody takes an hour out to answer my silly questions. Where do you find people who have time to care about other people? They found it in Lubavitch. People who care about other people. They don't really need a whole lot more than that. If Yiddishkeit, if Torah, if Hasidus makes a person sensitive to another person's needs, you can't say a whole lot more than that about any kind of human values. And if they find it in Lubavitch, they figure these people care about me. They've got something. I want to find out more about what it is that they have. They come in, like you say, dressed in weird ways, their appearance. One of the things that we try to tell them about Hasidus is that you don't get obsessed with a person's appearance. There's behind that long hair and behind all that crazy get-up that they may have, there's a human being there. In this case, there's a Jew there. There's somebody who's looking, and we just don't get put off by superficials, by externals. It doesn't take long till you don't even realize how he's dressed and who he is, because there's a human that you're talking to, and penetrating a forbidding kind of exterior is a job not only for the chassid, but it's a job for them too, because they may look crazy to us. I got news for you. We look crazy to them too.
I dare say you're right. Rabbi Posner, do you see any marked changes when an individual who attends the Begisha goes home? I think this is what really counts. It's very nice to spend a weekend with these fellows. It's wonderful to welcome them into our homes and to have them eat cholent on Shabbos afternoon and perhaps dance at a Malava Malke. But the question is, what do we have in end results? And I think you, who have been part of Pegishas for a number of years, and who has had a vast experience with this kind of a setup, what could you tell us about the actual accomplishments of these weekends or Pegishas or encounters, as they are called?
It was an experiment years ago. It's not an experiment anymore. It's been tested. It has been found effective. We do not get obsessed with statistics. It's very hard to have statistics anyway, and I'll explain in a moment why. But the important thing is that these pegishas do have a positive effect, a very significant effect on those who participate. Now, for example, there are several institutions that have been established almost directly as results of these pegishas to provide mature young men and women, university students, graduate students, with a very intensive experience in Jewish learning and Jewish living. For young women, there's Beis Chana that Lubavitch has. There's the Hadara Torah, several of those for young men students, where they will take out 6 months or a year, or actually devote themselves really to studying Torah once they've satisfied their desires for an academic education. These people really become thoroughly, completely devoted to Yiddishkeit, and before too long they become quite respectable scholars, knowledgeable in their Jewishness, and capable of becoming leaders themselves. There are several Hasidic institutions in different parts of the country that accommodate young men or young women. One, for example, Minneapolis. Well, several dozen girls, about 30 girls, I understand, went there to spend a week or two in a thoroughly Hasidic environment in as unconventionally Hasidic a place as Minneapolis, Minnesota. But there is a Chabad house there for young women, and they learn, they live a Jewish life. Now, to pick up and go there and spend this time means, first of all, that the Pegisha here had an impact, and going there means that there's going to be an even deeper impact. Many of them went on to yeshivas. But all this sounds rather impersonal. In terms of individuals, this becomes very heartwarming. People are not too eager to bare their souls. They don't talk too openly. Things happen to them, they'll be impressed, they'll be moved, and they'll just sit there and nod thoughtfully. They may ask a question, they may not. They'll go away, and there's been an impact on somebody's life. How do I know that it's true? They came back. One fellow, it just happened at one of these pekishas, one after another, one night after another night, young fellows came over and said, I heard you 5 years ago. I want you to know my life has been completely changed. He's married, has a child in a day school, I guess in a kindergarten it must be, and it's a thoroughly Jewish home. 5 years ago he knew zero about his Jewishness. Nobody knew about him. There's no statistic for him whatsoever. It's a human life that was completely revolutionized. The next night, a young fella came over. He was there 2 years ago, and he showed me his tzitzis are hanging out. He is still a student. I don't know what university he's at, but he said 2 years ago I came to a Pisha. I've become a Jew ever since. Um, Sometimes there's a delayed impact. Um, One student told me that he had been at a Pisha in December. He was a junior at I think it was William and Mary in Virginia, and he was waiting till his graduation. You'd figure a year and a half would be enough time for inspiration to dissipate, but it didn't. A year and a half later, sure enough, here he was in New York, registered at the Hadarat Torah to study full time now that he has enough leisure for it. There's an impact on a life. I know of a case, I don't know the name, I don't know who he is, but I heard indirectly of this mother who told a friend of mine that her son had been a freak. He was beyond contact. He was really totally alienated from his Jewishness altogether. They couldn't get to him at all. He came to a Pisha and he walked away as a Jew again. And that the only way we ever find out about things like this could really be almost by an accident. A friend met this boy's mother, who was an older sister of his classmate, and so on and so on. And that's how we found out the story. And every one of us has any number of little incidents like that aren't at all little, and they aren't just incidental either. They're tremendous upheavals in a person's life. And having an impact on one human being's life is enough of achievement for 70 years of active living. An interesting thing, some of the leaders of the Pisha right now, lecturers at the Pisha, organizers, the real spark plugs pushing it, were introduced to their Jewishness by a Pisha. There are some that it was really interesting. At the Pisha they fought like tigers, denying everything. I mean, but really a heated attack on everything Jewish. You talk about God, there is no such thing as a God. You talk about Torah, what do you mean this nonsense of a revelation? And attacking everything. And the thing was that the Chassid didn't get upset, and he wasn't angry. He didn't try to put him down in any way. It's obvious. If somebody attacks something, the object of his attack is of importance to him. If he didn't care, he would just walk away or wouldn't come around in the first place. And the more heated the attack is, the more important that thing is to him. And these young Hasidim were so patient and so accepting of this young man. Little by little, he just turned around completely. He became a Chassid 100%. And he's one of the finest examples of a Chassid that you'll ever find. And there he was, the product actually of a Pisha himself. These can be repeated over and over again.
I can say this to you, Rabbi Posner. I'm not a greedy person, but I'm envious of a fellow like you, who Baruch Hashem has chalked up these tremendous results. I suppose I'll have to wait about 100 years to find out if I accomplished anything.
These are not results, and they're not chalked up. You never know. You never know what it is that's effective. Sometimes you walk away from a speech and you figure, boy, was I terrific tonight. And then you find out that nobody heard a single word that you said. It meant nothing. But what was effective? You never know. What was effective was that the evening before, Friday night, they were at a Hasidic home, and they saw a family sitting together enjoying each other's company, where a son asks his father a question, and his father answers, and the son is listening respectfully, where brothers and sisters have an obvious affection for each other. They can squabble and fight like cats and dogs, like kids will, but you can see that there is a love in that family, that father and mother respect each other, parents and children respect each other, they care for each other, they enjoy each other, and that is not too common in this world. And if this is the meaning of a Jewish life and a Hasidic life, it's not far off the mark at all, and this could be more effective than most eloquent speeches and most the sharpest kind of answers to questions.
Rabbi Posner, we're beginning to run short in time. All I'm going to say to you is I'm going to have you back here tomorrow night if you like it or not, because there are so many things I want to talk to you about Nashville, which I didn't begin to talk about. The next few questions we'll have to answer a little shorter because I want to get in the answers to them. Tell me this. Do any of the fellows come with mental blocks. In other words, he walks in there, anything you say bounces off his head. He just came there because he wants to see what kind of a chevra we are, so to speak, what kind of freaks we are, as you put it so well before. And do you find also, well, of course, what I want to know is, do you find people who relinquish their entire being to us when they come into this Pisha? In other words, to say, here I am, I'm clay, mold me.
No, they don't come like that. Every one of them insists on his prerogative as an individual. They do not come in wide open, make anything you want to of me. They are people, they are individuals, they are personalities, they are intelligent, they have feelings, they have ideas, they have questions. That's what they have. They have questions. They can have receptivity, where they are not closed. Now, some will come in, like you say, with a mental block. They're going to be resisting anything you say. I guess usually they just don't come around at all. We can't keep score. We don't check them out and tot up the averages afterwards. There are some that come in, we never see them again. There are some that come in and they are here forevermore after that. But the important thing is that they come in, they're mentioned, they're people when they come in, and not clay to be molded.
Okay, my next question, I think this will be the final. What follow-up system do you have to with all these fellows, and do you maintain a contact with them? Is it just like, let's say, once they're gone, is Geges Hecht and that's it, or do you maintain the contact and the follow-ups? And I would also like to know, if I may, in part two of my question, are they ever interested in coming back to ask questions from afar, from where they came? Does it all have to be pushed from this end, or is there an interest left yet with them that they should come back to us, ask us more questions, turn to us for help, and so on?
Well, for one thing, that last part that you ask, I get mail from a lot of these students personally. Dear Rabbi, I heard you speak at the Pisha. I have some questions for you. Would you take the trouble of answering? And it'll go on that way. Correspondence begins with
Do you answer?
If I can. I'll acknowledge the letter by all means. I'll give the best answer that I'm capable of giving. When they come in, they register. The registration includes their address, so that there is a record. Now, sometimes university address changes and you can lose track of someone, but there'll be mail that goes on. There will be literature that'll be sent to them, invitations to later Pegishas and so on, so that we try as best we can to not to lose the contacts, and rather than having just a 3-day impact on the student, we much prefer to have it a lifelong association.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry that time has run out, but I want to say, for those of you who tuned in a little late, that our guest tonight was Rabbi Zalman Posner of Nashville, Tennessee. Rabbi Posner is a leading Orthodox leader in his own community in Nashville, the rabbi of the Congregation Shearith Israel, founder and head of the Hebrew Day School there, a guest lecturer at the universities, has translated many Hasidic classics into English, has been a radio and television personality, has lectured in 22 states, including Canada, Scotland, London, Manchester, Italy, and Israel, and is today the guest of, this weekend was the guest of the Encounter with Chabad. I would like to say, those of you who would like to contact Rabbi Posner, you may telephone my office tomorrow morning, 778-4600. We'd be glad to give you his name and address, and perhaps you want to get him down for a lecture to one of your youth groups. I don't know if he's available, but this you'll deal with him personally. Of course, you have to bring him in from Nashville, and but it's worth it. He's a very interesting speaker, and he's very, very solid, and he really has a tremendous amount to contribute. And so, my dear friends, it was wonderful having you with us tonight. We hope you'll be with us tomorrow night once again, when I hope to have Rabbi Posner once again to talk about Nashville. And until tomorrow night at the same time, may God bless you all.